Councilor Fisher?
Here.
Councilor Hamilton?
Here.
Councilor Levering?
Here.
Councilor Piper?
Here.
Councilor Robinson?
Here. Please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Consent agenda.
Make motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Second by Robinson. Roll call, please.
Councilor Piper?
Aye.
Councilor Robinson?
Aye.
Councilor Fisher?
Aye.
Councilor Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilor Levering?
Aye. Now it's time for visitors and public comment. If there's anyone who wants to speak on something that is not on the agenda, please come forward with your address.
Chris Peterson, 83rd Street East, Coming On May 25th at the market, we're going to have the bear fair. So I'm working with Ryan and FWP. And if the city has some information by then on the new law, we'd be more than happy to hand stuff out. Include that.
All right.
Okay. Just thought I'd let you know.
Anybody else? Seeing none, move on. Notice of a public hearing. Public hearing, animal conflict prevention. Conducting a public hearing for the purpose of discussing animal control prevention measures. Are we, Justine, speak first?
I can just do a brief introduction. Mayor and council, as you know, we discussed at our May 1st meeting whether you agreed to call for a hearing to discuss what we need to put into place. We need a permanent ordinance. I met with Ryan and Lisa from People in Carnivores as well to discuss kind of what they recommend for communities. And Lisa's even suggested that we, and it's in my memo, but Lisa had suggested that we could even look at a resolution, right, a policy statement. And what you're going to hear, we're going to have a presentation, but also a conversation with Justine and Ryan to decide what's going to work best. Justine will tell you that one of our biggest issues is the garbage. So if council, as we have this discussion, hopefully there's some give and take, to kind of meet out what is it that we want to do. I know there was some hesitation with just having a permanent ordinance that may or may not be readily enforceable, like bird feeders in the backyards, would be really difficult for either administration with our zoning hat or law enforcement to ferret all of that out. So Justine and Ryan have agreed to join us tonight to share their knowledge and expertise and to help us carve out what would be the best steps and next steps for council to take. So I let them take it over. Do you want to start with your photos?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'm going to load Justine's PowerPoint.
I'll just start while she's doing that. First off, I want to thank you guys for enacting that emergency ordinance last fall. Last fall, my conflict calls in Columbia Falls did go down. So, it can be taken a couple different ways. I would like to think that the ordinance did its job and got people to secure attractants. There's no way for me to truly gauge that. Are people just not calling, or did bears kind of quiet down, or did conflicts just, like I say, decrease just because of the ordinance? So I like to just wanted, I'm a visual person, so I wanted to just kind of supply you with some photos, just to give perspective of what we deal with on my end in terms of seeing bears in and around towns and Sioux Falls. So, so blue represents collared grizzly bears, collared males, and the pink are the females, and this is from 2004 to present. So, as you can see, like, that's a lot right there, but, you know, that's zoomed out over, you know, like I said, 2004 to present, so that's a lot of years of grizzly bear GPS locations. Now, these are just collared bears, keep in mind. These don't account for all the black bears, and these don't account for the uncollared bears. And so this red line is the Northern Continental Divide ecosystem boundary. So it's one of, the Northern Continental Divide ecosystem is one of 6 grizzly bear recovery ecosystems. So as you can see, we're right on, Columbia Falls butts right up against that, and it's right on the outskirts. And all of this in here is the recovery ecosystem. And so, like the trailer park north of town here is within the recovery ecosystem. If you go to the next one.
Oh, why isn't it showing? That's interesting. It's showing on my screen, the next slide.
Are you trying to do it again?
That is so weird. You can see it. So why isn't it showing on there?
Maybe if we would end the presentation and then just go to the second slide, maybe that'll help.
Come on. Resume.
But yeah, I'll just keep talking. Going forward, yeah, I want to help come up with, I want to hear feedback from you guys also about what you heard or experienced in terms of the ordinance, what didn't work. You know, I know that enforcement can definitely be an issue when it comes to these ordinances. Ideally, I think for me, seeing an ordinance in place with garbage would be a priority in terms of, you know, if we didn't want to come down hard on all the things in terms of electrifying livestock and taking down bird feeders, etc. Garbage would definitely be the priority. And again, just trying to be proactive instead of reactive, waiting for something, you know, really bad to happen to then be like, okay, we need to put this in place. I really applaud, again, you guys for being proactive last fall with that. And if that's not working, I have pictures too that I can pass around to you guys.
Goes through each one.
And so my slides here.
So if I can stop share. Yep. Then I say share screen. It shows us this. So now it's on, but it shows, so on here it's moving. On there it's not. That is so weird.
Let's just click on this picture.
Yeah, so my other slides, I've basically zoomed in to Columbia Falls. So you can see kind of the corridor that we're in, the natural grizzly bear corridor, and just wildlife corridor in general. And so we basically have a bottleneck effect. We have bears coming off of Tea Kettle and the Apgar Range, and they come down and then they follow the river down. And then we have bears coming from like the Columbia Mountain Range, and they're also coming down. And so Sioux Falls is like right at that base. And so we just get a lot of bears that travel the river. It's a natural corridor for them. They have service berries and choke cherries. It's natural coverage. And so, yeah, it's just a heavily used area. And so just trying to really show like what we do here, how how we go forward is important for human safety, but also trying, you know, to stay with conserving our wildlife and the conservation of these animals. I'm trying to think of what else on this I want to talk about. Oh yeah, we can. There we go. Yeah, so one of the things I talked about with Susan is, you know, for us, I've really seen the most calls, the most conflict calls I'm getting, the problem areas, it's that eastern part, you know, east of the nucleus, essentially, along the river, and they come all up in here and in this neighborhood, yep, down in here, but this has always been where I get most of the conflict calls. And then, yes, we get them up above. If you go to that next slide there, again, just another zoomed out version, you can really see the density in this area here. And then, next one. And this is the trailer park north of town. And I had a lot of conflict calls there last year. And so the GPS locations of these bears within Columbia Falls that I just showed you, there were 9 males and 7 females that really frequented town that these dots represent. And again, these dots don't account for all the cubs that these females have had. I mean, once you start talking about family groups and cubs, excuse me, it really, I mean, you start getting into, the numbers start going up very quickly. So definitely a lot of usage and traveling of bears through these areas, in and around homes, in and around people. So just, this is why I just can't stress enough, it's so crucial that we try and get ahead of stuff. Bear populations have gone up, human population has here in the valley. So just trying to get ahead of these conflicts that, you know, are increasing. And then go to the next slide. So I just put together quickly some stats that I went through and figured out. So from 2020 to 2022, so the last 3 seasons, 50% of my grizzly bear conflict calls were due to garbage. Then there was 19 was due to livestock depredation, so mostly chickens and pigs in the Columbia Falls area. And then 16% due to property damage, so mostly like chicken coops, but you know, some barns and sheds. And then 10% due to fruit trees and 4% due to livestock feed. The number of conflict calls that I got in 2020, 18. 2021 was also 18 conflict calls, and then last year was 30. So we almost went up double. So 66 grizzly bear conflict calls in the last 3 years. And those numbers do not account for outside of town. In the, you know, going down 206, it doesn't account for that. It doesn't account for all my black bear calls, and it doesn't account for like my calls that are like grizzly bear reports or sightings, because those technically, in a certain way, that's not a conflict. It's just a report. So, just wanted to put that in perspective. This picture was actually taken just before you cross the viaduct north of town. That is a female with her cub that she has produced a lot of cubs that we've had to euthanize over the years. She also is one that I'm actively trying to trap. She was one that I was after. I think she was the one that I was getting a lot of calls last fall in town and last summer. And yes, I ended up euthanizing him. So this was taken in 2020, and I euthanized him last spring. He was beyond a problem. So it's just, you know, trying to set ourselves up for success, but also set them up for success too. How can we kind of create a middle ground here? And like 2% is due to, garbage and unsecured pet food, or human food. And so I guess for me, asking you guys, what I ask is, consider an ordinance where we at least put some sort of way to secure garbage into place, more of a permanent ordinance for that. And yeah, again, I would like feedback from what, I don't know what you guys heard. So yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing, if anything, negative or positive. I'm sure there was some, grunting and groaning about it. But yeah.
Do we need to do the public hearing first before our discussion, or?
Oh, okay.
You're still, you could go ahead and present and discuss and then open up for comment.
Okay.
I did have a quick question, Justin. What's the timeline? Your first slide was 04 to now. What's the timeline on these dots here in town?
It's the same.
So 04 through 22?
Yeah. But again, these are just our collared conflict bears. Yeah. And I have a few research trend bears. So bears that are collared, females that are collared for research purposes, that are right on the cusp of town. I mean, in the CFAC property, I have one that actually beelined it from West Glacier just in the last couple of days to right on the edge of town here. So they're walking a fine line. They could easily become my conflict bears. So yeah, just keep in mind these dots just represent a small portion. So.
And Ryan Wilbur with
People in Carnivore.
People at Carnivore. P&T is also here.
Hi, my name is Ryan Wilbur. I'm the Northwest project manager for People in Carnivores. We work on a lot of different carnivores, trying to mitigate issues and conflict related to wolves, mountain lions, and bears. But obviously today we're talking more about bears. Echoing what Justina talked about, really applauding Columbia Falls for taking a very proactive initiative where a lot of communities haven't quite gotten there yet, so I definitely applaud that. Especially as populations continue to grow and expand, and human populations continue to grow as well. And also echoing, we agree with the idea of an ordinance, especially that can take on a lot of different categories and inclusivity of different aspects of attractants. A lot of different communities may take a different approach. Like Justine was saying, at the minimum, with a lot of the trash being a big conflict area, at least considering garbage as the main focus. Just maybe it's a little bit more digestible, or thinking about the bird feeders and whatever other attractants might be taken into consideration. And if at the same time, if an ordinance specific to trash, and/or you can include this idea of a resolution to work towards reducing conflict on these other aspects, bird feeders, fruit trees, whatever else, education and outreach. So that's something our organization works a lot with different communities, different individuals at varying scales and scopes, whether it's outreach and education, funding for different projects. We've done assessments for entire cities to be like, okay, here's where the attractants are, obviously being very confidential for personal need, but kind of scaling up to a bigger scope. You're like, okay, we have a lot of garbage cans, we have bird feeders, and really identifying areas that maybe more need to be similar to what Justine has shown with the locations, but also seeing where those other attractants are potentially going to be. So really trying to narrow down where focus areas should occur. And then also, like I was mentioning, just education and outreach can be a big factor as well. Properly securing garbage, or how do we properly use bear spray, or just different tricks and tips to try to approach that. One of the big things we really worked on is vacation home rentals. I forgot, let me